Bruin fans, fall is finally here. That means UCLA football is back in your life. Head out to the Rose Bowl to enjoy America's best tailgating and to make more unforgettable memories with the Bruins. Nico Iamaleava and the Bruins are ready to make an impact this year, and we need you cheering them at the Rose Bowl. Visit UCLABruins.com or call 310-UCLA-WIN to lock in your tickets today. 310-UCLA-WIN.
Good afternoon. We're getting right down to business here. We're doing it live, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons, right after Guy Benson and Friends at 3 and just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang at 5. Stay tuned tonight at 6 for Winning with WINANS with top-ranked money manager Ken Winans. Right now, you're listening to Mottek On Money, live on the air, 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com. And yes, the on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, kbc.com. Apple iTunes, YouTube, all your favorite podcast platforms. Big day for Apple today. And gold stocks also rallying. Kickoff to the new week on Wall Street, bracing for another busy week on earnings and also a delayed release of key inflation numbers. Well, that'll be coming out, we hope. The Dow coming in for a closing gain of 516 points at 46,707. The S&P 500 of 71 at 67.35. The NASDAQ popped more than 300 at 22,990. Yep, you heard me. Apple hitting a record high today on strong iPhone 17 demand. Apple shares are moving up nearly $10 at $262 and change. Bitcoin also on the rebound today after that nasty week last week. Right now hovering just below 111,000. And yep, gold popping to record highs, just shy of 4,400 an ounce. A lot to talk about with the precious metals coming up this hour. Silver is hovering at around $51 an ounce after hitting record highs over the past week. And platinum continues on a roll as well, up around $1,650 an ounce. Zions Bancorp, third quarter results coming in better than analysts expected after the closing bell today. That regional lender's disclosure of bad loans linked to fraud last week spooked investors with concerns about U.S. credit quality. Zions Bank shares closed at more than $2 at 51 and change. Of course, we're watching what's happening on the trade front as well. Treasury Secretary Bessent said relations with Beijing have de-escalated, in his word, and U.S.-China talks will resume this week in Malaysia. Over the weekend, President Trump listed the top issues, including rare earths, fentanyl, and soybeans, and a sign the White House is continuing to soften its trade stance with China. The U.S. government shutdown, meanwhile, entering its third week. The federal stoppage has slammed the brakes on inflation and jobs reports. The Bureau of Labor Statistics is set to release September's Consumer Price Index on Friday, delayed from last week. Also, the fallout from a major Amazon AWS outage today, the ripple effect of which took platforms such as Robinhood offline. Among others, the cloud giant underpinning services for many top companies, including airlines like United Airlines and Reddit. Looks like the operations have slowly returned to normal during the course of the day, according to Amazon. Gold at a record high, and we're watching what's happening with the miners today. Also, President Trump's rare earth deal with Australia today, setting the table for a highly anticipated meeting with China next week. That's been getting attention today as well. Cleveland Cliffs stock remained higher today in afternoon trading after the company said it would redouble efforts related to mining for rare earth metals. We'll talk more about that coming up this hour as well. In the crypto space, we see Ethereum hovering just below 4,000 and a rebound in the crypto arena. We see Solana right now at 191 and Doge also on the rebound now at 20 cents with Bitcoin, as I mentioned earlier, just below 111,000. We're watching the strategy stock gaining today. That's the MSTR ticker symbol on that one. And also iBits moving up more than 2 today at 62 and change. Trading platforms Robinhood and Coinbase also moving higher. Watching the price of oil hover below $60 a barrel today, despite the latest flare-up of tensions in the Middle East. Israel conducting dozens of airstrikes across Gaza over the weekend and halted humanitarian aid into Gaza after it accused Hamas of killing troops inside Israeli-controlled areas in what's shaping up to be the biggest test so far of the fragile ceasefire, which is just about a week or so old. I'll discuss the latest later this hour with Middle East expert Dan RAVIV, former network news correspondent, author of numerous books, including his latest ebook titled Target Iran, and how Israel's Mossad agents penetrated the Islamic Republic of Iran. He also hosts the Mossad Files podcast. Dan RAVIV will be joining me live later this hour. And taxpayer advocates here in Los Angeles blasting the LA County Board of Supervisors for voting to use local tax dollars to provide rent assistance to undocumented migrants. Under an emergency declaration, the county could now direct rent relief funds and other housing help to immigrants impacted by federal immigration enforcement actions. I'll discuss that and more with AIDAN CHAO, founder and chairman of the Los Angeles Taxpayers Association. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy, and the whole works now. Joining us live, top-ranked money manager Ken WINANS, president and chief investment officer at WINANS Investments at winansinvestments.com. Ken WINANS, also a market historian, author of numerous books, including his latest, Investment Atlas 3, Creating Wealth Using Historical Trends. Ken WINANS is also a Forbes magazine contributor and has his crypto credentials, too. Most importantly, he hosts Winning with WINANS, heard every Monday night at 6 p.m. on your favorite station, 790 KBC. Also heard in the Las Vegas market these days as well. Ken WINANS, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
My pleasure, Frank. And, here we go again with yet another bank hiccup. You and I have been through several of these in our careers. And I'll tell you that the number one thing I kept hearing about all weekend long, although we're all very excited about what's going on with the metals area and certainly in other commodities, but it was this very big concern that many of the nation's regional banks might have some bad loans on the books. That, the old adage, lending money to questionable areas, not being able to get full recovery on it. And that is always a concern to some degree, but that seems to be the number one thing that popped up today. But you are 100% right when you're talking about the wild run we are seeing in the metals complex. And then also today, as you mentioned, with what happened with Bitcoin, I mean, the whole, that was where money was going today. But Frank, I'll also add, I've had a record number of people who almost in the same vein of thought will say, I want to buy gold, but I'm scared to buy gold and I don't know what to do. And it's almost like they just don't know, people realize they've missed something you and I have been talking about for years. And it's almost like they're afraid to be the last one at the party without a chair.
They're live with Ken WINANS. And Ken, what about gold here every day? Just about now, record highs, although it got a bit of a hiccup on Friday, but roared back today, just shy of 4,400 an ounce. How much higher do you see gold going from here?
Here's where it's going to get interesting, and I think we're at that point. We've got to keep a very close eye on the relationship. I mean, obviously, when you say gold, let's also throw silver, copper. You mentioned platinum before the interview. I mean, it's not just a one-trick pony. It's the entire metal complex. I really do think that we've got to look at the relationship between what's going on with metals and what's going on with the dollar. The part that makes this very interesting from a historical standpoint is that usually when you have these big runs in gold, you're seeing the world's key currencies falling out of bed. That's not happening right now. Yes, the dollar's, weak from where it started the year, but it's trading well within normal trading ranges for the last couple of years. So this is good old-fashioned demand, whether you're looking at it from an industrial standpoint, meaning technology, whether you're looking at it as central banks around the world are going back to some replay of the 20th century, whether you have people or just uncomfortable with everything. I think it's all the above, Frank, and that's going to continue.
All right, precious metals and now rare earth metals with this Cleveland Cliff stock soaring today, and this deal involving Australia and President Trump making deals related to rare earth metals, including with Ukraine and so forth. What about that interesting part of the story today?
More and more we're going to hear this. I mean, I think that the concern, and it was kind of interesting, several of the competing financial news feeds that you and I monitor, they're all talking about how China has won up President Trump on the rare earth thing. That's not the case. This discussion about, having other supplies of the metals that we need to run our modern economy, that is actually going on. I think we're going to see a lot more talk about this, whether it's with Ukraine, with Canada, even within, as you mentioned earlier, I now live and work out of Las Vegas, and there's so much talk about rare earths in the silver state, so to speak. And quite frankly, even in California, up in real, true Northern California, they're finding some very large deposits. So again, I think we're going to find that is going to be a boom situation for pretty much anybody. In fact, I'll even go as far as to say this: where we are right now with rare earths and the focus on it is about where we were with fracking 7 to 8 years ago before it really took off in the Dakotas and certainly in other states. I think we're going to have the same thing here with rare earths.
You have a presence in the right states, the Golden State, California, and the Silver State, Nevada. So you're in the right places here on the air live with Ken Winans, top-ranked money manager Ken Winans. And on the flip side, oil has moved below $60 a barrel, and seems to be getting comfortable there despite the recent flare-up of tensions in the Middle East over the weekend. What about oil here? The oil stocks have taken a hit.
They really have, and I think what we have to do right now, we're in that time of year where, natural gas is becoming more important, certainly for heating homes in cold parts of the world, but also, too, just it's the natural seasonal effect of things. The companies that are both gas and oil, whether they're pipeline companies, whether they're exploration companies, they're going to be fine. I think that the reason, I get asked this all the time, why is oil not doing what it did in the 1970s? It's real simple. We have stronger domestic capacity than we did before, and that capacity, i.e. selling it to Europe, we have buyers for our oil. As long as you have that, you don't have these massive oil price swings that we did before. But Frank, I think again, I had a lot of people that they had just assumed oil was going to take off again. And I know this is painful for citizens of California because you're saying, Ken Winans, I'm hearing you talk about this, but when I go to the gas pump, it hurts. You know what? Blame your elected officials and the bureaucracies that continue to back them. That's all tax, all fee, and the fact that they're not building any new refining capabilities in California. That's where that is coming from.
Right, and in fact, looks like refineries are going to be closing. That's also putting upward pressure on the price of gas, so we may not have seen the worst of it, given the fact that oil prices have come down. We're not seeing that reflected at Southern California gas pumps at this point. Prices are even higher than they were a year ago, so that's something we're keeping a close eye on. What about Apple hitting a record high today? How about them apples?
You know what? It's amazing that Apple has had the comeback it had, but just in fairness to it, it has. When we talk about the Magnificent Seven, it has lagged the rest of the seven by a pretty big margin. But I mean, here again, the cell phones, the way they are, they're like you talked about demand for the new 17. It is kind of interesting because I'm sure you're the same boat that I am. I'm getting a lot of requests for, hey, you need to turn your phone on, you need to exchange it now because the very nice way they word it, your phone's going to get more difficult to use as time goes on if you're not willing to upgrade, which is a bit of a hint, you better hurry up. But also do keep in mind that Apple, again, when I look at Apple and I compare it to some of the other big tech stocks over the last 20 months, it is lagging considerably. So let's hope this continues. But I do think in the case of Apple, it's going to have to come up with more things than just phones. And you know what? Hopefully the powers to be in that company, they'll get those creative juices going and they'll catch up on AI.
Right, even if it takes a merger deal, a lot of speculation about that this year, whether Apple will merge with some sort of an AI entity, and some names have already been put out there. What about the Magnificent One here, NVIDIA, which hit record highs recently, pulling back slightly today. Here I see at around 182 and change, and the other members of that Mag 7 list.
I can't be happier for those of us who are in these stocks. I mean, I've had a big position in Broadcom for a number of years. They're all kind of tied together. I will just say this, there's certain canaries in the coal mine that I begin to watch for with my 30 plus years of money management. And when I have clients ordering me that I am not to sell these positions under any way, shape, or form, I literally received those emails over the last week. That makes me very uncomfortable because I had these same exact emails from people about Apple before Apple went into its multi-year hiatus. So again, be careful, just don't fall in love with stocks. Love friends, love family, love your pets, don't love stocks. They can and will bite you. I do think that one thing that certainly people should consider, we do have a very strong, this whole fall is really going to, I think, probably going to put some records in the book We had a very strong September. This October is starting strong. November, December, January, typically all play in suit. But I would say this to people, that as we get to the end of the year, you start the calendar all over again. When you have things like gold and silver and, crypto, and certainly now the AI plays, it might not be the worst idea to take a little bit of money off the table, as any good gambler does in Las Vegas, but wait until you get out of the tax season to do it.
All right, let's turn to cryptos here. We can put the crypto hat on for just a moment. It was pretty ugly for a while there with Bitcoin around 105, I believe it was, over the weekend, and right now back to around 111 here. So what about the volatility? We've seen cryptos doing what they do, volatile, and it's certainly more fun on the upside, but uncomfortable when it goes down here. What about the latest crypto moves here?
I think it's one of these things where people are in fact buying the dip, Frank. They really are. They're stepping in across the board. It's been interesting for me. I'm watching the ETFs especially, even though I have my cryptocurrency credentials. I'm watching the ETFs, and why I bring that up is because they actually have a fair number of inverse Bitcoin ETFs, meaning they make money on it going down, and you're not seeing the volume of those take off on this correction. It is very much more buy the dip. And I think that whether it's because the NASDAQ's been so strong this year and Bitcoin is a powerful relationship with the NASDAQ on a quarter-to-quarter basis, that's in place. But it's just people moving money around into alternatives. And I'm having more and more people who were not big fans of crypto initially are realizing that going into next year, with the banks getting more involved in it, the administration is very much supporting it. I think people know, whether you believe it or not, go with the trend, don't fight the tape. And I think also the Federal Reserve is going to be much more involved with crypto as well. So the old adage, don't fight the Fed.
All right, and all this happening while the government is in hibernation here, with that government shutdown continuing, and it's been delaying some of the key economic reports. Is it having an impact on the market here, or is Wall Street brushing all that off?
It is pretty amazing that the market this is now, I guess, the longest shutdown, according to what I read one thing today, is longest shutdown ever. I'm not sure about that, but whatever it is, it's beginning to cause problems, especially for people who want to try to plan air travel for the holidays. People are getting a little nervous right now. Here's the thing. We are at a point in time right now where we depend less on government statistics than we have, because we're in the middle of earnings season. We're going to hear straight from the companies of what's going on, and many of them do business with the government. One of the things we talk about it on and off, but the other big thing besides AI, it is the defense stocks. When I look at what is going on in this market right now, and they're not necessarily the big names, Frank, but there are a lot of the companies that make special areas that are just basically taken off. And one that I've had a position a while, which is Kratos Defense, KTOS. They're specialized in special types of drones. Stock's on a tear. Stock has outperformed anything in the AI space. So again, you're finding these areas, and it's the concern about being paid by the government doesn't seem to be stopping them right now. They're moving higher. So I think that as long as earnings season stays on track, we're just not going to be overly concerned about those government reports.
All right, and last but not least, the big question here: any specific places where you are putting money now and/or taking it off the table?
Well, one of the things that I would say, I've been a big fan of buying the financials for quite a while because of what we've been seeing with the Trump administration push on deregulation. One place that I am taking money off the table, it's very clear the insurance stocks are just getting creamed. I think, again, we can expect that earnings will probably not be very good there. So don't just buy a financial ETF. You got to look at specific stock picking, look at the big banks. I think JP Morgan, Bank of New York, Wells Fargo, any of the too big to fail banks are going to have a very, very good earnings season. I still think retailers are going to have a great Christmas. I know not a lot of people are saying that right now, but these stocks, like TJX, Walmart, I think their sales are going to be great for the holidays. I think, play the seasonal odds and go with what works. But get ready right now as we get through the rest of this earnings season. But Frank, last point, I'll go on this note. If any company misses its numbers and it blames tariffs, I would sell it. They've had more than enough time to figure out what they needed to do. I wouldn't wait around for those things. Reposition the stocks that are moving forward.
Ken Winans, thank you very much for taking the call. Looking forward to continuing the conversation tonight at 6 on Winning with Winans right here on 790 KBC. Ken, thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
Thank you, Frank. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. And out to the freeways we go now, 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues, 790 KABC. Good afternoon. Positive start to the new week on Wall Street with the Dow rallying today right out of the gate, up at the close at up 516 points at 46,707. The S&P 500 71 at 6,735. The NASDAQ up 310 at 22,990. Shares of Zions Bancorp closing up $2.31 at 51.98. After the closing bell, the company's third quarter earnings news beat Wall Street analysts' expectations. Bitcoin rebounding today, right now hovering just below 111,000. Ethereum just below 4,000. Solana at 191. Doge at 20 cents. Gold in the spotlight again, hitting an all-time high right now, more than $26 at 4,385 and change. Silver is above $51 an ounce after hitting a record high earlier the last couple of days. And we see platinum at the moment at $1,653 an ounce. And crude oil futures pulling back down 15 cents at $57.37 a barrel. And now the latest news on 790 KBC.
Hey, Bruin fans, want to go behind the scenes with your favorite teams and athletes? How about getting exclusive merch and opportunities to enter sweepstakes like sideline access at the Rose Bowl? Introducing Blue and Gold Society, UCLA Athletics fan membership program created to support Bruin student athletes. Members receive benefits like exclusive gear, videos featuring insider stories, and incredible experiences courtesy of UCLA Athletics. Sign up today at blueandgoldsociety.com.
Action.
Next Roll is a groundbreaking podcast created and executive produced by Vernon Davis.
This is where we talk about reinvention.
The series explores the transformative journeys of athletes, artists, comedians, and entrepreneurs.
They don't just stop here. They just keep going.
Next Roll isn't about what's next. It's about why they do it, how they overcome fear, and the resilience it takes to keep evolving at the highest level.
That's what it's all about. Stay tuned.
Next Roll with Vernon Davis. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Mottek On Money continues here on 790 KABC. We continue to follow the latest developments in the Middle East. Nervous time over the weekend with violence flaring once again, threatening the fragile ceasefire there, which President Trump had brokered recently among the parties involved. Let's bring in Middle East expert Jan RAVIV now, longtime network news correspondent and author of numerous books, and want to talk more about his latest book today as well, which focused on the Israeli intelligence service Mossad infiltrating Iran, leading up to the, of course, obliteration of Iran's nuclear program. So a lot to talk about here with Dan RAVIV. Dan, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Always great to be with you, Frank.
Thank you very much. First of all, we're watching the latest reports here. Israel conducted dozens of airstrikes across Gaza over the weekend, and looks like humanitarian aid into that region was also halted after Israel accused Hamas of killing troops inside the Israeli-controlled areas. This appears to be the biggest test so far of this fragile ceasefire. Give us your assessment of things as they stand here at the moment.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But today, Monday, things frankly got better. The Israeli military said they've returned to the ceasefire, and they allowed hundreds of aid trucks to get into Gaza. As I say, things are better. The Israelis say they are watching Hamas, that there were serious violations of the ceasefire that began a week ago. Now, President Trump is also watching because this is very much Donald Trump's plan. And during the weekend, Donald Trump said, you know, it might not be Hamas itself, but rebels in Gaza who are firing at the Israelis. But today, Trump said it is Hamas that has been violating the ceasefire, and they'd better behave, otherwise we will go in. A reporter said, what do you mean by we? Do you mean U.S. troops? And he said, no, I don't think we'd have to. There are 59 nations, said Trump, 59 countries that are supporting this this plan to end the Gaza war, the plan that saw all the Israeli hostages released a week ago. And he said plenty of countries could take action, and certainly if I tell the Israelis to do it, they would do it. So I would say that President Trump was kind of making a threat, but he literally said, Hamas has been rambunctious. They better behave. As I say, it's better today than it was over the weekend, Frank.
In the latest here, I see Vice President Vance is now planning to visit Israel, according to what President Trump has to say today, again warning Hamas, saying the U.S. brokered the Gaza truce must hold, and also issued another warning to Hamas as he's sending the vice president over there now.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating, because Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, the two emissaries who really made the deal for Kushner's father-in-law, President Trump, they're in Israel right now. Apparently, they're making all the phone calls to Qatar and Egypt and Turkey, the three countries that can put pressure on Hamas. And they themselves today, both Kushner and Witkoff, saw Prime Minister Netanyahu. Tomorrow, Vice President J.D. Vance will arrive. He will meet with Netanyahu. Frankly, I think that this will bring Vance up to speed. He hasn't been so involved with this process. I think it's interesting, if you think about American politics and how the White House works, that President Trump didn't want to leave Vance out. He's depending on Witkoff and Kushner, but Vance is also going to be involved. I think it shows that for the whole Trump administration, making this Gaza ceasefire work, and I think they'd like to go beyond it to widen, the peace prospects for the Middle East, is something that's, really a very high priority for Trump and his entire team.
And, of course, the vice president took a high profile here in Southern California over the weekend for the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Marine Corps at Camp Pendleton. So he's going to be racking up some impressive mileage now, heading over to the Middle East. We're on the air live with Middle East expert Dan RAVIV, former network news correspondent, a familiar voice to radio listeners throughout the world, author of numerous books, including his latest ebook titled Target Iran, on how Israel's Mossad agents penetrated the Islamic Republic of Iran. What about Iran at this point, Dan RAVIV, and is it continuing to support Hamas in this latest flare-up over the weekend?
Well, President Trump addressed that today, and he said Hamas actually is a lot weaker than it used to be because it does not get support from Iran, because Iran, according to President Trump, is running out of money. Indeed, sanctions were reimposed, not just by the United States, but in the past 2 weeks, the European countries that have been part of the Iran nuclear deal of 2015, they imposed what are called snapback sanctions on Iran. They're not going to buy Iranian products, and they're telling other countries that they cannot buy Iranian oil and other products. I'd say Iran is really shaken. The economy is terrible, and Israel leaked a story. It was clearly the Israelis today that the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Khamenei, is suffering dementia, can't even think straight for more than 10 minutes. I call that psychological warfare. So I think Trump and Israel are trying to put pressure on Iran not to cause any more trouble in the Mideast.
And we're seeing these horrific videos of executions in Gaza and indeed in Iran. I don't know if you saw that report of someone who supposedly helped the Israeli intelligence service also executed over the weekend.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, because the Iranians often claim that they caught somebody who was spying on behalf of Israel. Now, the best sources that I have in Israeli intelligence, and I've been covering, that and writing books about it with Israeli journalist Yossi Melman for about 30 years, and those sources tell me that almost everyone who is arrested in Iran is innocent. It's the Iranian regime just trying to look active and smart. So in that new book, and thanks for mentioning it, it's only an ebook, by the way. In the ebook Target Iran, we have shown and established that Israel had 140 paramilitary people inside Iran on June 13th, the day that war aimed at Iran's nuclear facilities began. And on June 13th, there were Mossad agents who fired drones, who managed to hit anti-aircraft positions. And here's the big revelation, Frank. None of them was an Israeli. The Mossad managed to put together a veritable foreign legion, I think mostly Iranians who hate their regime, who did this work for the Mossad, again showing that the Iranian Islamic Republic, I would say, is very weakened and shaky right now.
On the live, Dan RAVIV, his latest ebook is titled Target Iran. His other books include Spies Against Armageddon and Every Spy a Prince on the Israeli intelligence service Mossad. He's also the host of the Mossad Files podcast these days. Dan RAVIV, based on what you said regarding the condition of the Iranian supreme leader, what is the outlook for leadership in Iran at this point?
Yeah, I asked around among Israeli experts, and they say hardliners would probably follow. Let's say the Supreme Ayatollah Khamenei, only the second supreme leader, right? They had Ayatollah Khomeini, who turned Iran into an Islamic Republic back in 1979. Now Khamenei, who is aged, he's going to have to be replaced. But the prediction is that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, real hardliners, probably will control the country. They'll be violent as required. They will execute people. I don't know what the hope is that Iran will become moderate, but you might have noticed in the 60 Minutes interview of Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, Witkoff said, "We are in touch with Iran. There have been contacts and feelers, and Iran would like to be part of, well, I'll call a kind of a peace train in the region of putting aside violence and conflict." I know you're always interested in the markets and the impact of all that. That would be a major relaxation, right? Oil prices already low, OPEC plus producing even more to make up for any shortages. And if you'd also have a general relaxation in the Middle East, hey, that would be good for the economy.
Is the Iranian economy on the brink of collapse? As you rightly point out, the fact that oil is hovering right now at around $57 a barrel.
Yeah, and a lot of people are predicting it'll go lower, but I know you have other experts on that, so let me just tell you, yeah, the Iranian economy really terrible. Their currency is being devalued again and again, and it's horrible to be an Iranian. I know you'll hear also from people of Iranian extraction there in Southern California that they know and they hope, right, that the regime will collapse, and again, there can be a democratic regime. Some of the Iranians in America would support the late Shah's son, the so-called baby Shah. So, things may come in the coming years. One thing that the Israelis realistically hope for is that Saudi Arabia, that still does not officially have relations with Israel, might decide to join the Abraham Accords. President Trump really wants that. I don't know how optimistic to be, but I know what the Trump White House wants to happen, and that Witkoff and Jared Kushner say they're still committed to widen the circle of peace. I hope it can happen.
Dan, thank you very much for taking the call. I hope to see you out here in the Los Angeles area sometime for maybe a book signing or some event where we can interact on all of these important issues in person here. Always appreciate you joining us here. That is Middle East expert Dan RAVIV, former network news correspondent, author of numerous books. His latest is an ebook titled Target Iran, How Israel's Mossad Agents Penetrated the Islamic Republic of Iran. Dan RAVIV also hosts the Mossad Files podcast. His other books include Spies Against Armageddon and Every Spy a Prince. Dan, thank you very much for joining us live this afternoon.
Sure. Have a great evening.
Thank you very much. And out to the freeways now on 790 KABC.
Hey, Bruin fans, want to go behind the scenes with your favorite teams and athletes? How about getting exclusive merch and opportunities to enter sweepstakes like sideline access at the Rose Bowl? Introducing Blue and Gold Society, UCLA Athletics fan membership program created to support Bruin student athletes. Members receive benefits like exclusive gear, videos featuring insider stories, and incredible experiences courtesy of UCLA Athletics. Sign up today at blueandgoldsociety.com.
Everyone knows the legend of D.B. Cooper, but what if I told you there's an even better story out there? One with multiple aircraft hijackings, prison escapes, and so many twists and turns. I'm talking about the hit podcast, American Skyjacker, which is now an action-packed documentary coming to theaters and streaming this fall. Find out more at www.americanskyjacker.com and listen to the bonus episode of the podcast on October 7th. American Skyjacker. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Mottek On Money continues. 790 KABC. Taxpayer advocates looking out for you in Los Angeles, blasting the LA County Board of Supervisors for voting recently to use local tax dollars to provide rent relief to undocumented migrants. Under an emergency declaration, LA County could now direct rent relief funds and other housing help to immigrants impacted by federal immigration enforcement actions. Joining us live now to talk about that and everything tax-related here in Los Angeles, AIDAN CHAO is with us, founder and chairman of the Los Angeles Taxpayers Association, their website, la-tax.org. AIDAN CHAO, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
Good afternoon, Frank. Thank you for having me.
Great to reconnect with you here on all things taxes here impacting Los Angelinos. And what is your reaction to the recent action by the LA County Board of Supervisors for voting to use those tax dollars to provide rent relief to undocumented immigrants?
Well, Los Angeles County is already facing a record homelessness crisis from the Palisades to Altadena to our downtown. Yet the board is prioritizing benefits for individuals who are not in the country legally. So every dollar spent on rent subsidies for illegal immigrants is a dollar taken away from helping our law-abiding residents who are struggling to keep a roof over their own heads. So this is time and time again a case of misplaced priority by our Board of Supervisors.
There are a lot of people hearing about this for the first time. What is your taxpayers advocacy group doing to let people know about this here?
Well, we have been on record as opposed. We have been discussing with supporters of Supervisor Barger, who's the lone sane voice on the board, who voted against this. We've been out and about canvassing on this issue, among many others. We have been fighting the fight all over LA County.
On there live with AIDAN CHAO, founder and chairman of the Los Angeles Taxpayers Association, la-tax.org. Has anybody put a price tag on this?
I don't think anyone's put a specific price tag on it because what it is a declaration of a state of emergency. They have not provided the eviction moratorium just yet. However, we know that it's going to be in the hundreds of millions, if not billions. It's not something we can afford, just like we can't afford Prop 50.
All right. Obviously, the county's financial situation being looked at, and we know famously the LA City budget situation not looking good at all with that big deficit and recent layoffs and so forth. Can you give us an update on how these budgets are looking?
Well, they're not being helped by the fact that we gave an unconditional, mysterious settlement of $2 million to our county CEO. It's not helped by the fact that we just had to pay out hundreds of millions of settlements to the victims of, I believe it was sexual abuse over the years in a class action. We are paying out close to $500 million in settlements alone, which definitely does not help the $1 billion deficit in what we call fiscal emergency that we're in.
What's happening on the legislative front or policy front that you guys are tracking closely nowadays that impact LA County taxpayers?
Well, extremely, extremely importantly, as the legislative session just ended, is the fact that we're tracking Prop 50, which is the hot button issue. It's what happens when a government loses touch with its constituents and its reality and believes that politics is all we play by. It's got a large fiscal impact of $280 million. It also breaks up representation for Latino and AAPI communities in Los Angeles, in the southeast part of the county, as well as in the eastern San Gabriel Valley. So right now, to watch out for our constituents, so that's a sticking point that we're looking at right now.
All right, and obviously the painfully slow rebuilding effort, as you noted at the beginning, continues in the Palisades as well as in Malibu and also in Altadena. Any updates there and how money is being spent to help those areas recover?
We're continuing to monitor the situation, Frank, and I'm encouraged by what I see, both from the leadership of our county leaders, but also from Steadfast LA and Rick Caruso's team. Our good friend Lou Horn is part of that as well. I'm very encouraged by seeing that at least there's discussion and rebuilding, but we all know the facts are that it's a slow path ahead to recovery.
Right, with a lot of red tape still needing to be cut, right? And for anyone that wants to support your efforts and connect with you and the Los Angeles Taxpayers Association standing up for LA County taxpayers, what's the best way to do that?
Please reach out to us at talktous@la-tax.org. Please send us an email there or discuss with us through our website, www.la-tax.org.
All right. Anything else on your radar screen that you'd like to mention at this point?
Right now, we're just fighting a good fight in LA County on taxes, on regulations, and on Prop 50. That all matters.
All right, and people can get more information about that at la-tax.org. Aidan, thank you very much for that important update this afternoon. Look forward to staying in touch with you and following all of your social media as well and your events coming up. That is Aidan CHAO, founder and chairman of the Los Angeles Taxpayers Association. Again, their website is la-tax.org. Live with us here on Mottek On Money on 790 KABC. Pretty good day for Wall Street today, kicking off the new week after that rough and tumble week last week. The Dow coming in for a closing gain today of 516 points to kick off the new week, starting the week off at 46,707. The S&P 500 of 71 at 6,735, and the NASDAQ popped more than 300 points at the bell at 22,990. Bit of a sigh of relief for Zions Bancorp, coming in with better than expected earnings after the closing bell. That stock today rebounded at more than $2 to 51 and change. The volatility index gave back 12% today. The big story, gold, continues on a record tear. Gold moving up more than $26 here at the moment at $4,385 and change. Silver hovering above $51 an ounce after hitting record highs in the last week or so. Platinum also continuing on the roll right now at $1,653 an ounce. Apple at a record high. Another big story today at nearly $10 at $262 and change. NVIDIA pulling back 58 cents at $182.64. And AMD moving up more than 7 at $240 and change. Now stay tuned for the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang, and I'll be back at 6 with Winning with WINANS right here on 790 KBC.
Hey, Bruin fans, want to go behind the scenes with your favorite teams and athletes? How about getting exclusive merch and opportunities to enter sweepstakes like sideline access at the Rose Bowl? Introducing Blue and Gold Society, UCLA Athletics fan membership program created to support Bruin student athletes. Members receive benefits like exclusive gear, videos featuring insider stories, and incredible experiences courtesy of UCLA Athletics. Sign up today at blueandgoldsociety.com.